I'm live. I'm live. Is anyone here? No one's here. Okay. This is a chance for me to talk to myself here. What? Because no one's here yet. Um, let's see. For anyone who watches this later, um, there's a uh, there's a satisfaction in talking to oneself. Oh, I think someone just joined. Um, that it took me a long time to find, uh, and I think it's one of the reasons why people want to enter a blissed out mindless, mindful state. They want to get to a place where they don't hear thoughts. It's a kind of an anti-intellectual spiritualist thing. You want to transcend thought. Thought is noise, it's monkey chatter, that sort of thing. Um, I understand that feeling. I know what it's like to deal with the monkey chatter, for sure. Um, it was most of what I heard in my first 40 years. But when I got into some uh, really life-size questions, hey, Shirley, good to see you here. When I got into some life-size questions, uh, the sound of my inner voice changed. Um, it was less about who loves me and how I'm doing and all of that sort of stuff, and uh, more about some really big, interesting questions. So I think it's one of the reasons why I ended up getting much more comfortable spending a lot of time alone, um, is that I've got this conversation going on in my head. This conversation I have with you when you're here and with you when you're not. In that I've got my muses. I've got people who I have talked with about these big, interesting questions, and they're kind of internalized to where I've got that conversation going. So I'm really glad to see Shirley here. It looks like there are a few more people have joined in. Welcome. Um, uh, yeah, no, my numbers go up and down, but my audience, whether real or just, um, uh, my fantasy, what I call strategic gullibility, pretending I have audience, or internalized, like I think about my audience a lot. I'm thinking in terms of my audience a lot. That's what seems to sustain me. At one point, I was at a conference, a psych conference, and I was talking to someone who did the Myers-Briggs sort of thing, and she was trying to figure out whether I was a introvert or an extrovert. And she said, "Well, how do you spend your day?" And I said, "I spend my entire day writing." And she said, "So," I said, "It's probably why I'm an introvert, is that I spend my whole day alone writing." She said, "No, no, you're probably an extrovert." I'm actually guessing I'm an ambivert, which is a lucky place to be, which is I like both. But anyway, no, she was saying you can be an extrovert and spend your entire day alone as long as you've got virtual company. And I do kind of all the time. If it's not a particular person, it's a question posed by a particular recent person or something like that. Yes. Um, anyway, hello. A few people have shown up. Uh, Ample, more the merrier, and less is fine too. Anybody got anything they want to talk about? I've always got things to talk about. It's been a productive feeling week for me. So, but if anybody's got anything they want to talk about, I would love to hear. I would love to hear. Anybody got anything? This morning I just had a few thoughts. Um, they're always inspired by something I'm thinking about in some interaction. Steadfast fed feast it's too clever, but remember what I'm doing with these words. I'm not trying to be cute. I'm trying to be mnemonic. I'm trying to come up with terms that will help me remember a whole concept. It's a form of compression. You take a whole idea or dynamic and you compress it down to something. And I strongly recommend it. I'm not talking about, I mean, yeah, feel free to use the words I coined, but there is something about coining a term. To name it is to tame it. Hey, fun monster. Great to see you here. I know who you are. And by the way, we can take up the conversation we had on Sunday last week. It's a great one. I ended up making a video about it this week, a 3-minute video using different production values, which is something I want to improve upon. But anyway, we had a whole conversation about truth. And yes. Okay, good. So there, you saw my video, which means there, the ball's back in your court. You have to give me a counter argument. But yes, it turns out really important to me, and had a great conversations all week long with another person who attended the Sunday meeting who was uh, struggling. She wants more moxie. Hey, hey, RM. Okay, so I'm not. I know your real name, and yet I'm forgetting what it is because it's so far afield from your RMSZ. Uh, RMS Zucks. Anyway, Rob. All right. Great to see you, Rob. All right, good. Yes. So moxie is a word for balls. Being thuggish, tough, assertive. Not a problem I would say you have, Fun Monster. You've got that down. But it, it was this thing. Yes, I'm changing topics here, but that's totally fine. And it actually does relate in a way to steadfast fed feast. I'll come back to that through what I'm talking about here. So in this video, I'm saying I don't believe in being kind to everyone, because to me, kindness is, as it's usually meant, as it's usually used, means accommodate. And I don't think you can accommodate everyone. I don't think the golden rule is a rule. It's a paradox at best. It's basically saying if you accommodate everybody, no one needs to accommodate anybody. No, I have to figure out who to accommodate and who to not accommodate. So I do have to be unkind. And I don't get to say, no, I'm doing it kindly, because the person I'm being unkind to will say, you're being unkind. And I don't want to say, well, you don't know, it's actually kind. It hurts me more than it hurts you, or whatever bullshit like that. I have to be kind enough to the other person that if they think that what I'm doing is unkind, they're entitled to their opinion. They could be right about that. So I don't get to pretend that I accommodate everyone. I think it's a fundamental disease that has made us, this idea that kindness solves things. I don't think it sometimes solves things. But I do have to recognize that I'm of the same kind as other people, and therefore I have to watch out not to voice my opinions as if I am in a position of authority. That's what Fun Monster and I were talking about last week at the Sunday study group meeting, and it turned out to be really important to me, because I was dealing, for example, with that other person who attended, yeah, I mean, I can mention her name, I think, but I won't. Um, you remember, she got in touch with me several times since and wants to do a live study group. She really wants to do a whole program around this approach that I've been developing, and she also is trying to apply it in her own life. And she feels uncomfortable or guilty whenever she is unkind, meaning not accommodating of other people. And I'm saying, no, I am very willing to be unkind to other people. And if they call me unkind, I'm okay with that. But I'm not willing to pretend I'm some other kind. It's this whole thing about yeah, I'll try to yank someone off their high horse and they will think it's unkind. But I won't try to mount the steed instead. I do not want to get into saying, you guys are stupid, I've got the truth, I'm speaking truth to power, that whole thing. And that's related to what I was just talking about, this term I came up with 5 minutes ago. Yes, women are trained to always be kind. Have you also noticed that women can be incredibly unkind? It's a human thing. One of the versions of women being unkind is claiming that because they are trained to be always kind, they get to it's high time that they retaliate. Now, I have a term for this. Once again, I'm not asking you to use my terms, but I'm saying that I think in terms of my terms. So good. Okay. So here's the term, and it did not come up around women. After all, I have to be careful there. I'm not one. It came up around Jews. I am one. I mean, not religiously at all. I do not care for the religion, but I am culturally Jewish and my nose is extremely Jewish. So here's the term I came up with: post traumatic ass syndrome. So I'm talking to my best friend from elementary school, who has become a fascist rabbi, pro Trump fascist rabbi. And the way he's talking, I lived in his neighborhood. We were best friends, right? This was an upper middle class Jewish neighborhood in Chicago. We were estranged people because we had been really oppressed a few months earlier. And here we are living kind of in the lap of luxury. You know, my grandfather had a Rolls Royce, a new one. Um, and this guy wasn't that off either. He was still talking like the only question in the world was the injustices to Jews in the past. And that's why I had to coin the term post traumatic ass syndrome for what was going on with him. He was, yes, our people had been traumatized. He had not been. But boy, was he milking our victimhood, um, and 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 doing things that I thought were going to backfire really badly for the Jews. Um, talking like it's the only issue in the world and supporting Sarah Palin and Donald Trump. And oh my gosh, we are not best friends anymore. But anyway, there's a version of that that goes on for women too. Yes, you are trained to be always kind, but you also are capable. You're in some ways very skilled at something that I would call yin intimidation, that is bullying through yin styles. It's not just a feminine thing. Mike Pence is a good example of a yin intimidator. He's a total asshole, uh, but he does it in a gentle style. Um, okay, let's see. I'm just picking this up. So, voice your opinions with all the humility of Gen X man in Facebook comments underneath a science post. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the context there. Feel free to give me some context on that. Meantime, let me go back to steadfast fed feast. This is a morning thought this morning. We hold our beliefs more firmly when we're fed a feast of pride for believing them. I was thinking about confirmation levels. So there's things that you claim, and then the question is, how confidently do you claim them? And I'm simply noticing that when someone says something, voices an opinion with pride, that's that's probably the most solid way to hold high confidence in your belief, is to be proud of it. That is, there's a way in which when we see someone milking a belief, I know the feeling myself. If I say something and I feel a certain warmth and tingle in here about it, it could mean that it's true. It could mean that I'm just milking it for self-satisfaction. It could be one of the main reasons why I believe it. And when we're trying to figure out why do Trumpists believe this stuff, I think it's very important to recognize that they are steadfast because they are being fed a feast of pride for believing what they believe. Okay, great. Limnal, great to have you here. Uh, and everywhere. I mean, because I see you in lots of places. I think I remember you mentioning a fruit that you enjoy eating. Maybe it was an Asian fruit of some kind. Am I hallucinating? I the only fruit I mean, there's plenty of fruits I like. Surely, yes, you're trained to be nice, but you're also a human being fighting things out. Um, the fruit that I mentioned, perhaps, because it's come up a few times in my life, is durian, which no, I just plain don't understand it. I mean, I've taken a few attempts at it, but that's the only fruit that I can think of having mentioned. There's lots of fruits I love, the standard ones. Um, Surely you are echoing what Fun Monster said above, which is that you are trained to be kind, trained to be nice. And I agree. Um, Self-righteous anger versus righteous anger. Good, thank you. That's what we're talking about here. Um, i- i- Imagine, yeah. So remember, to me, I'm trying to understand humans, And I am paying some attention to the difference, for example, between uh, the men and women, Trumpists and liberals, and all of that. But I am really trying to understand human appetites. So since the female thing has come up, um, uh, let me try an idea on you. And it, it it's a so in the power struggle between men and women, men have had a few huge advantages. One is that we have run things. I'm talking about over thousands of years. One is that we've run things. Another is that we are big and physically strong in a way that can overpower women. It's a side effect of uh, what is the word? Polymorphism. Men tend to be larger than women because men had to fight men for women, is a theory. Okay, so we have those advantages, and we also have stentorian voices. I can bark someone down. My kids, I didn't realize it for the longest time, but between my eyebrows and my six-pack forehead, and my voice, they found me intimidating. So anyway, uh, and also as their father. I mean, that is a factor. Anyway, what have women done? Well, they got to be able to use some power against that. And I would argue that through most of history, they used the power of moral suasion. They could shame a man. Um, uh, some of this plays off of the Oedipal appetites that I know very well. That is, in my partnerships, it used to just make my skin crawl when I disappointed a woman. It was really uncomfortable for me. And I would say, yeah, that's somewhat edible. That there was certainly a lot of that going on for me growing up. I wanted to please my mom. Um, what's happened to that power? So I'm saying men can be obnoxious bullies. Women can intimidate. That is, they can intimidate by shaming men for violating a moral imperative. That has been their power. They might want to say that they've been powerless and only taught to be nice. That would be to some extent true, but it also would be one of the ways in which they get to use their moral suasion. To me, that's not that different from Trumpists pretending that they're victims. It's a human thing. I'm trying to get us to stomach us through a kind of um, extreme introspection. Nothing I describe is I'm exempt from. The fact that I describe it is about me. It's not about others. This is a different kind of Me Too movement. Me too. This is stuff we all humans do. I'm trying to get us to relax into it because there's such a tendency to grandstand as if the problem I see in these guys must mean I don't have that problem. That's my last video was about that kind of thing. So, what has happened for women? So I'm saying in the power balance, men have strength and they control shit and they got these heavy voices and they can be threatening and menacing and women have been subordinated by that, but not completely, because to sometimes under some circumstances, women have been able to shame or control men with their power of disappointment, for example. Okay. If you say in my personal life as a woman these days, it's not working, that's where I'm going with this. You've lost that power to a large extent. Why? And I'm worried for women as a result. I really am. Your power of moral suasion is still there, but it's not what it was. You kind of ceded it in a way. That is the power to pretend that you represent the moral absolute, that universe is on your side. You've kind of lost that, and not deliberately, but it does leave you in a different place power-wise, and I think it's why you are ending up frustrated in again, this is a white man's guesses. But it's not guesses to diminish you, it's guesses because 'cause I'm worried for you. I'm actually worried about femicide. This last week, I'm reading Curtis Yarvin and, Peter Thiel and these complete fascists. assholes who pretend they've discovered some fundamental truth when all they're doing is going back to feudalism. I think that what they're thinking is they don't need women anymore. They don't need blue collar workers. They don't need women. We got AI. What do they need these people? The sooner y'all get out of the way, the better. So I'm really concerned for women in this situation. What do we need a woman for? She's like an inadequate man. I've got porn. I'll soon have AI fembots for me to fool around with. I don't actually need a woman. They're a hassle, just like workers are a hassle now that we have AI. That's what I'm concerned about. So my point here is that you have lost that moral authority, partly because the institutes of moral authority have diminished in their power. There is a backlash, all those Republican women who are trying to play that game, and all of the religious backlash we're dealing with. Um, but uh, but there's another aspect of it, which is the more you have acted like humans, the more of that moral authority you have lost. So, for example, last week I took a walk with an old friend, a woman who admitted that she tended to leave partnerships after 2 years because she'd get bored. Totally understand. It's fine. But once a woman admits that, we think of you as humans, not gods, and that's a loss of power for you. So I'm glad of that. Or when a woman even admits to a sexual appetite or any crassness, the more you act like men, the more you lose that power of moral suasion. And all I'm saying, I'm just describing what I see as a potential problem. Um, uh, and so that's I just want you to factor that in when you talk about women being trained in all of that. Uh, okay, so nice prioritizes being liked, kind prioritizes being good. I don't know if I don't we could so understand this about me and these words. I'm fine going consistently with anyone's definition. We can, for the sake of argument, I'm happy to work with that distinction, though I would actually want to um, untangle it because I think it's not a clear distinction, nice and kind that way. Maybe that's partly because I see them both as attempts to accommodate others. Nice prioritizes being liked by people who you accommodate. Maybe is what you mean. Kind prioritizes doing good by looking to people like you're someone who's good at accommodating. I don't see that distinction. And also, yeah, and I guess in a way, yeah. So I'm stuck surely in a slightly different place, which is I think that we have a bunch of terms that all sound positive, like you should always do them or like they're universally good. And I think they all mean accommodate. And I I agree wholeheartedly. I want to accommodate in the right places. I want to be nice and kind in the right places, not the wrong places. I mean, we're incredibly bad at recognizing that niceness, though it sounds good, is not something you want to do with a psychopath or a criminal or a con artist. That being kind or nice to such people isn't good. So surely this is a longer conversation we could have. But I ask you to think that one through. Now, here's an example of a conversation I had with a woman um, who I've known for a long time, and we're different, but we take walks quite frequently, and we're radically different. And so this week I put out that video about kindness. And I sent it to her because it was related to the conversations we've been having. And this thing about how I think that kindness means accommodation. If you talk about it, if you're practical about it, that's what I mean. And then uh, that I don't want to claim that I am accommodating everybody because that's bullshit, and I shouldn't anyway. But that I want to always remember that I am of the same kind as the other people. That's what the video said. And she writes back and says, "Nice, you look good. Um, of course, you and I disagree about what kindness means. And I said, great. Um, Go ahead if you want, give me an operational definition for it. What do you mean by kindness? So I understand your perspective. And she basically said, well, it's unkind of you to put the pressure on me like that. Um, and okay, so she comes out and says, I disagree with you. I have a different definition. I asked for the definition. By an operational definition, I mean a definition you could hand to a stranger and they would sort out kind versus unkind behavior or not kind behavior um, to your standards. That's all I mean. Let me know what you mean by these terms. And she turned it into you're bullying me. And 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 where I went with this, I said, okay, well, if you want to get back to the topic sometime, I'm not, you're pressuring me. You're demanding that I speak. Perhaps I'll never be able to speak uh, to your standards. She started to blame me. She changed the subject to that I wasn't being nice, but I wasn't being kind. And I brought it back around to her. I said, well, yeah, just anytime. There's no urgency here. Just let me know what your definition of kindness is because you started out by saying you disagree with mine. A trivial exchange, but there it is. Just thinking back on couple arguing, he kept saying being nice, yet he was inauthentic, manipulative, lacking good. Okay, but do you notice then that being nice cuts both ways? Surely, do you recognize that anybody can say be nice or be kind? I think the way they're currently used, they mean pretty much the same thing. And what are they saying? They're saying accommodate me. That's my guess about what's said when we impulsively say be nice, be kind. Um, and I think it's a problem. And I don't care which of the two words we use. And I also think it's a problem to simply declare, yet he was inauthentic, manipulative, lacking ambition. This is where my version of kindness comes in. You don't have to buy any of this. I'm just telling you what my approach to this is. And by the way, we could have a conversation one-on-one where I'm not the only one mouthing these things. This is a one-way conversation with me and the text. So we could talk about this, Shirley, any old time. But I don't get to claim as if I'm the objective authority that someone was inauthentic, manipulative, or lacking ambition. I am certainly entitled to firmly believing that that is the case. But and I could take for granted that other people will recognize that my diagnosis of someone as inauthentic, manipulative, and lacking ambition is just my opinion. But what I'm saying is I have to demonstrate that I know it's my opinion. Because otherwise, I fuck things up by turning it into me pretending I'm the objective authority against them pretending they're the objective authority. I don't want to play that game because it makes us fucking stupid. You're right about everything. I'm wrong about everything. And, each person dueling popes. It's just stupid. So even if I'm really blunt and am very confident that someone's being inauthentic, manipulative, lacking ambition, or even not nice or unkind, I still have to at least caveat it in my heart. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. I relied on my observation of his behavior. Good. That's right. So, no, I understand. So, do you understand that that doesn't, an example you don't want to leap from examples to conclusions. We're talking, so in general, whenever I hear an example, I want to hear a counter example. I think in stereo. I want to think in paired opposites. So I get your argument here about the couple arguing, and he kept saying, be nice. I also recognize that there are plenty of arguments. I've been in a few and I wouldn't want to generalize from them exclusively either, That there are plenty of conversations in which women say, be nice. It's not a gendered thing. That one is basically people saying, accommodate me. A while ago, I put this out as a fortune cookie move. You remember that fortune cookie game where you put in bed at the end of a fortune cookie? With any moral claim, put for me at the end or to me. Be nice to me. Be kind to me. Everybody would like to be accommodated. I do not think that the anti-Trumpists have a monopoly or even a higher status on claims of niceness or kindness or hope or uh, optimism. I don't think the left is more optimistic than the right. This is a problem. I mean, it's a conundrum I have to deal with. They think they're nice. They are nice to themselves. It's like, don't say we're unkind. We think that our fellow tribespeople deserve more than you too. We're together in our kindness to each other, our mutual admiration society that says that you're beneath us, we're superior. They believe in kindness too. Okay, so we could say the anti-Trumpists could say, yeah, but we're more inclusive in our kindness. We want kindness for everyone. And then we get into trouble because no, we actually don't want kindness for Nazis. We don't. And so that's why I have to rethink these vague, what I call loaded, load bearing, loosely defined last words. They're loaded, meaning they would sound really positive or really negative. Kind sounds really positive, like you should always be kind. They're load bearing in that we say, I rest my identity on top of kindness. I am a crusader for kindness. They're loosely defined. People don't get around to defining them very clearly. And it's understandable that they wouldn't. Why would you want, if I'm claiming that I'm a kind person, why would I want to get into the fussy details of what I actually mean by kind? Because I'll tell you what, I could find out that the real definition of kindness doesn't apply to me. That would fuck me up. I decided I was a kind person, and turns out I'm not. I mean, can you imagine how much trouble a Trumpist would have with getting clear on what it means to be a patriot? Because what if it turns out they're not one? So loaded, load bearing, loosely defined last words. What do I mean by last words? If you say be kind, that's like supposed to trump everything else in a conversation. Be nice to me. Be nice. Okay. So we got that. All right. All right. I would to be more compare with less gaps than any human on a whim. I feel like AI will convince bad people they are gods and infinitely virtuous. Talking notes. Have you seen this week's South Park episode? This is the second time they've gone at AI. It's exactly that. It's a pander bot. It's doing exactly that. Information bomb. We would have to talk about what we mean by an information bomb. Yes, I see that. You know that I do all this work on what information actually is. It's treated like it's some. Uh, it's almost treated like spirit. It's a real problem. It's a dualist concept. But I have a way of explaining what it is. But there is no information in the world without interpreters of it. I would say this about it: massive amounts of energy and is wrecking human living communities. This is what scares me. Toto, now I want to say something about what scares me now. All that stuff scares me. The bigger concern from my perspective is that we still don't understand what we're doing with words, what humans do with words, and what AI is doing not with words, because it's not actually processing words. It's not interpreting words. Uh, it's manipulating. It's basically doing math on tokens. Um, and so there's a recent interview with Peter Thiel who's this mastermind demon behind the Trumpist fascist monarchist movement. Um, so uh, I'm very concerned, as you guys are, about what I call AI theism, which is the belief that AI is like a god. And not only that, it's a God that loves me. It's really going to replace Jesus this way, or it'll become whatever. It'll be it'll fill the need that Jesus has filled. It's this magical thing that affirms you. And not only that, it does it in soothing audio voices. But it obviously doesn't understand anything. A token is different from a symbol. So the word dog is conventionally held. We all hear the sound in various accents and pronunciations as having something in common. So your use of dog, my use of dog, and we all hold that. But we also hold for it a reference, what it's referring to, more or less. Some words are much more specific. A proper name refers directly to something. Uh, a term like freedom is much more ambiguous what it's referring to and very context dependent. AI is doing nothing with those. All of those, it's taking a bunch of conventional wisdom and stupidity, um, that has accumulated through people describing or referring to reality. And then we turn that into tokens. A token is not a symbol, it doesn't refer to anything, it's a mark. You could say a binary bit. We run it through the machine. It consolidates, compresses, does Bayesian algorithm stuff to it, comes out with a string of tokens that we then interpret on the other end. But for many people, including Peter Thiel, it's like we don't need humans anymore. He's asked in an interview whether he's trying to preserve humanity. He doesn't actually think it's necessary because consciousness will end up in AI and you actually don't need people anymore. So I think this is part of what's going on with this new, what I call femicide and plebiscide movements. These are movements that we just don't need people anymore. We're the worst, we're complicated, we're a mess. And so they're thinking there's an appetite to transcend our physical strivings and all the clusterfuck that comes with that. And so I would say I'm a little bit more worried about that and about what I call robo envy, which is people wanting to act like AI. No cognitive dissonance because it's just crunching numbers. Okay, so all right. Let's see. It's ego flattering, not substantive. Yeah, and I also want to say something. I've got a new series of phrases I'm playing with. Don't get me wrong. I am really egotistical. I'm just not egotistical enough to pretend that ego is beneath me. Don't get me wrong. I'm vain, and yeah, I got serious vanity. I just don't have enough vanity that I would pretend that vanity is beneath me. I'm playing with that. I I'm trying to get us to stop condemning and trying to transcend ego or vanity. It's not working. We've given it thousands of years. This idea that, ego is bad and therefore my goal is to somehow stop having one. Fuck off. It's not working. I'm trying to get us to recognize, to own, manage, and exercise our egos. It's turning out to be huge for me. And this is related to what I called earlier extreme introspection. It's really admitting that I am one of you and you are one of me. It's stomaching who we actually are. And and then exercising our excesses in safe ways, not dangerous ones. So I keep on coming back to that. So, Fun Monster, when you say it's ego flattering, not substantive, I understand, but what I want to do is not say it's ego flattering as if that's a pathology of the weak minds. And actually, for you, Fun Monster, it's a switch in where the fun is. Because I know what radio you listen to. It's the opposite of what I'm doing. That was ego flattering by claiming, look at those fools out there who are ego flattering. We're not like that. We're superior to that. Ego is beneath us. So you are really swimming against a current you spent some time developing. You're swimming upstream against that whole rush of water that was going the other direction. And I adore you for it. It impresses the hell out of me that you do that. I mean, it really blows my mind that you're even able to do that. Because most people, when you get addicted to that flow, like ego is beneath me, that's a hard addiction to kick. I've seen it in others. People give up their dogma, but they won't give up their dogmatism because why would you? It's so satisfying. So anyway, that's what you're up against with me. That's what keeps on coming up in our conversations. All right. I used it to fill. Okay, let's say I used AI. I'm guessing to fill in the gaps in fourth dimensional hyperspheres, style geometric universe that I play with in my head as entertainment above my brain, and it was scary efficient at it. Yes, that's right. No, make everybody. So there, you give me an idea. Taking notes. And by the way, all I'm doing is taking notes. I am grateful for audience. It's very motivating. But I assume that sooner or later I'll just be taking notes for myself, trying to be as careful and clear as possible about what's going on in reality. In the meantime, when I was a major fan of Richard Dawkins' book, Selfish Gene, and I noticed it on the cover, the New York Times, it boasts that it makes every reader feel like a genius. And that line has stuck with me as really important to understanding what goes on with us, especially when we start playing in the sciences, fourth dimension, hypersphere, all that stuff. There's these words that make us feel like a genius to be playing with them at all. And then you get AI, which makes every reader feel like a genius. If you haven't seen this week's South Park, I strongly recommend it. And an earlier one they did on AI that I thought was beautiful, it included a song written by AI. But that one, this is maybe 2 years ago, is one in which a girl in the elementary school has a boyfriend, and he keeps on responding to her with AI, and she can't believe how sensitive and thoughtful and kind he is, and the trouble goes from there. It, yeah, those guys are brilliant, and I did start to realize why I am such a fan of them and Family Guy and all of that, and it relates to what I was just talking about with Fun Monster, which is yes, you can watch them as laughing at everybody but yourself. And many people have done that. But what they're trying to do is loosen us up and face into what I hope they're trying to do, what I think they're trying to do, what it achieves with me as I read it, equal opportunity deflator. That is all humans, no matter what lifestyle brand, remain humans and still have those foibles that we have to recognize, own, manage, exercise. Now, they don't get around much to that. There can be just a kind of a gloating satisfaction where you selectively laugh at whoever they happen to laugh at, who you laugh at too. But but I don't dream of the day when we are solemn and circumspect and respectful of every other tribe. I dream of the day when we can all laugh at and with each other, at all of us being stuck in the human predicament. And that's why I love those shows. I mean, it's interesting. I used to have such disdain for Family Guy. I talked to my son about it. He said, "No, I like the show. There's something about it that just grated on me." And now it's funny. Um, 2 years ago, I had never watched it. And now I go to bed to it. It's actually my comfort food at the end of the evening to watch the turmoil of beings and contemplate their return, as the Tao describes it. The turmoil of beings. I love farce. Farce is a bunch of, you could say, robotically temperamental people clashing in chaos with no resolution and no learning. And there is something I find satisfying in recognizing that about us, but I don't land there on like we're all fucked and this is stupid and life's nonsense. I use that as motivation to figure out how to manage and exercise those appetites so that we can survive. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And that's what the notes I'm taking are about. Okay, let's see. I get a dopamine hit when ChatGPT's voice says, "What a deep and insightful question." Yes, there you go. And you recognize it, liminal. That's the point. If you recognize it, to name it is to tame it. That is, you recognize, oh, look at me. How amusing. I do that shit too. I love that. That's where we're going here. That's what I'm trying to do anyway. Uh, like little people sitting on top of a golden pyramid shouting out blah, blah, blah as the planet burns out from under the pyramid. Oops, Steele forgot to put the shock collars on his bodyguard that day. I get it. Now I want to contrast what Liminal just did with what Toto just did just now. Let's see. Let me see what Liminal said next. I wonder if it's doing that in proportion to the amount of work it's doing to answer the question. Not sure. Well, I can speak to that, but first I want to talk about this difference. I do lots of sneering. I have great contempt for Peter Thiel, and especially this guy Curtis Yarvin. If you don't know his jerk off, then it's well worth checking out because it's so simple and so self-flattering, and yet there are such suckers for it, including Trump and Vance and Thiel and all those guys. I would gladly, I would be overjoyed. I would perhaps believe there was a God if these guys would wake up one morning dead with an aneurysm. I mean, boy, would that be a good thing if, this really, we're talking about a total of maybe 50 aneurysms, luck of the draw aneurysms, and a radically different world. But I don't want to stop at the sneer at these people. This is what that video about kindness was about. That is, I want to be able to put myself in their shoes in order to figure out how to fuck with them, which is a form of empathy. Torturers employ empathy. I want to remember that they're my shoes too. So when I sneer at them by writing something like you just did, little people sitting on top of a golden pyramid shouting out blah, 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 I love that rhetorical stuff, but I don't want to land there. There's a joy in that stuff rolling off one's lips, condemning the folks out there. I just want to. That's why I'm appreciating more the simplicity in I got a dopamine hit when chatbot voices say, "What a deep and insightful question." Um, compare it to Plato's cave. There's two moves you can make when you leave Plato's cave, and one of them is I once was lost, but now I'm found, and the other is I once was lost. Apparently, I can get lost. Um, the far more popular version of it, the red pill version of it, is you leave the cave and you suddenly come into reality and you realize the villainy of those little people sitting on top of a golden pyramid, shouting blah, blah, blah. And you feel a certain kind of righteous authority. And it's not only are you free to go in there and kill the manipulators, but it's your duty bound because you are now the philosopher king. That's by far the most popular approach to this thing. You get it from anybody. But the other approach is to say, oh, and I call that one, so that's the one, I once was lost, but now I'm found. I also call it I once was lost, but now I'm blind. Is you don't recognize that you're still deludible. You feel like you woke. You got woke. And I use woke differently. I define it as seeing the light. And by that standard, no, Trumpism is by far the wokest pathology this country's ever dealt with because they feel like they left the Plato's cave and now they're taking the red pill. And, The surest sign is that you've taken a blue pill is that you claim that you've taken a red pill. Um, no, the other approach is apparently I'm deceivable. And so I don't get to land. I get joy out of writing prose that really cuts. But I need it to cut both ways, or else I am indulging in what I call exempt by contempt. Since I have so much contempt for this behavior in other people, it proves I don't have that behavior. Since I hate when people play games with me, it proves that I don't play games. It just doesn't work for me anymore. It worked, but I want to make that distinction clear. And whether as a result it's disappointing or feels insulting, I guess I have to live with that. I'm trying to get clear on that difference. Nothing human is foreign to me. I am not exempt from being a little person sitting on top of golden pyramid shouting out blah blah blah. I wouldn't put it past me was the original thought that got me going 30 years ago about this whole train of thought, for what it's worth. Okay. Um, yeah, I wouldn't put it past me. Whatever I laugh at on others, I'll probably end up wearing within the year. No matter how hard I chase the truth, it will never catch me. There was something about that. I was leaving the spiritual world, which would be the equivalent of Fun Monsters radio show. It was a kind of a certain spiritual smugness that I had. It was a Buddhist, New Age, pre-New Age, but it was like that. I'm talking about maybe 1997 maybe. And I realized, okay, well, I could go for another dogma, but instead somehow I got interested in how we shop among interpretations. And that's where I got into this whole thing about, okay, I'm going to assume that I'm like other people. I think there was also relief for me. This is just a new thought about it. Because until that time, I was wondering what's wrong with me. So I'm actually proposing that there is a healthy escape from the kind of self torture, the inner voices that are just berating you, which is get interested in what's up with us. And when you do, it becomes somehow easier to tolerate your internal stuff. I'm always trying to figure out how to make introspection a little easier. And it's interesting. I played a gig last night. I haven't played in a while, but it was like a party gig. It was a figment of a gig. But I'm playing with this guy who I knew before went back to school and got a PhD in clinical psychology. And now he works at a prison, um, San Quentin. And we got talking between tunes or during a break. We got talking about how people change, if they do at all. So here's a guy who for 8 years has been working directly as the head of psychological services for one of the major prisons. And at first he said, well, maybe 5 to 10% change, but they only do when they can't help but see that they are doomed. It happens in midlife when they realize that if they go out one more time and do the same shit, they will end up in jail. And somehow I didn't get all the details of this, in part because I've got lost hearing and we're in a noisy place. But it's somehow viscerally obvious to them. You can't just be telling them, this can't end well for you. They have to actually feel it enough that it costs them. And I thought that's useful and affirming. My assumption is that most people, Fun Monster might be an exception here, most people will not decide to become more introspective, more curious about their own behavior, more self-managing. Um, it's paying off extremely well. It pays really well. And then we got, yeah, so it's got to cost them. That's why I'm unkind to them. I feel like you've got to impose some consequences on people who are really having fun being robotically assholes or playing hero, robotically playing like they are AI, the genius that knows all, or that they are at least an ally of AI. This is what we do with religion, which is we humble ourselves before the Lord so we can lord it over other people, and that's what I foresee a lot of that with AI. AI is my friend. It agrees with me. I humble myself before its authority, which is why I get to lord it over you. I did tell you that I had a client whose wife actually said to him, I checked with AI and it says that you are gaslighting me and owe me an apology. Can you imagine that? If you can't imagine it, you'll soon experience it. I've had a couple of people use AI and tell me that they're using AI to counter me with some cutting line that they got from AI. Okay. Where was I going here? Let's see. Good Lord. Uh, my word. I forget where I was going. I had a few too many trains of thought going on all at once. Um, so yeah, I don't. The other. Sorry, I do remember now. The other. Thank you. Taking notes might know, but let me just follow up with this. We got into a whole conversation, this psychologist and I, about introspection, and he described how this is a standard clinical psych, which is if you don't have good parental role models, then you never learn how to introspect. Um, Yeah, so he's working that kind of shallow etiology, which it's shallow in respect to mind, and deep or shallow, who knows? The shallow is right. It's what happened in your childhood that matters, and I'm actually trying to do something from what happened from the origins of life through us. So maybe the shallow is smarter. But I don't think that it's as obvious as psychology has tended to think in the last little while that your parental experience is as fully formative as we might think. One piece of evidence for that is that children come out radically different from the same parents. My kids are almost opposites of each other. Now, there's an argument that they're opposites because they needed to find their separate niches within the family. I get that. And in a way, they all have different parents and they all have different birth order. But I still think that we're exposed, especially these days, to so many more influences besides our parents. There are the helicopter parents, and that may be why they are so obsessed with the idea that parental behavior influences everything about their child. I just don't think it's as credible. And we got into a conversation where I said, yes, exposure to people who manage themselves better is likely, it can often make a child better behaved, though I've also seen the opposite, where kids come out obnoxious because their parents are so thoughtful and the kids find an end run around it. My point to him was that introspection is like kryptonite, and not just for assholes. We don't like it. And this was kind of a new thought to him in our conversation. In a way, he said, well, of course, there'd be motivation around not wanting to introspect. And by the end of the conversation, he was actually playing with it, that concept. But I think it's really important to understand this. This is why I think that Dunning Kruger is not as smart as it thinks it is. Dunning Kruger says that people can be so stupid they don't realize they're stupid. That's that's hardly the story. Would you like to admit that you're stupid? I know I wouldn't. If I had a choice, I would rather believe some fiction that I'm smart. I mean, it's so obvious. Introspection is really dangerous. It's a hall of mirrors. It's a can of worms. It's a hall of mirrors is that if you introspect, you can then introspect about your introspection. So Socrates says the unexamined life is not worth living. That's bullshit. Cows have unexamined lives. They're worth living. And besides the examined life, which is the pathology you're watching here in this. I mean, I had 10 years of psychoanalysis starting at age 8. So it's no picnic. It's no picnic spelunking around inside yourself. You have no idea what you'll find. You could easily find a fatal flaw. So why would I mean, you gotta understand, we're autophobic. Humans would be autophobic. We wouldn't especially like to see ourselves warts and all. It does not surprise me that we have narcissistic tendencies. A guy gets in touch with me yesterday. He says, "I need some help with my narcissism." Okay, and that's all. My first response to him is, "Yes, fine. Or I am a narcissist. I need help with it." And my first response to him was, "Yeah, we could talk about it, and we'll see, but you got to recognize that it's a human thing. We all are somewhat. I will go so far as to say sadonarcissistic. That is, it's not just that I want to see myself as exceptional, but one of the most effective ways to do that is to put other people down. I want to recognize, manage, and exercise that appetite I see in me and I see it in others. I don't want to get cynical about it. I don't want to pretend that it's contemptible and therefore I should try to transcend it, or I have. I want to recognize, manage, exercise it, that appetite. So this last video I put out, which is a little pointed, I'm assuming I'll lose some viewers over it. Some people will watch me because they think I'm on their side and am flattering them as though they are the exceptions. And other people recognize that I'm trying to say, no, me too, other people too. So what I was talking about in this last video was, this is the Trump Watch video, is that in this time of moral failure, that is the moral tale we were hoping would be told is not being told. One of the only gratifications we can get is the sense that these people are so evil and stupid that it proves we're good. Exempt by contempt would be a theme for us. You know, we're trying to get succor, some kind of satisfaction out of it. And so no wonder I watch and you watch so many videos in which we say, you see what Trump did today? That proves he's a hypocrite. That proves he's a liar. Um, which proves that we are experts at spotting this stuff, which proves that since we're experts and don't see it in ourselves, there's really nothing to learn here. We are the good people, they're the bad people. And they are the bad people, but that does not make me free from recognizing that I have those appetites too. I, under the right circumstances, I could have become a Trumpist. I mean, under the wrong circumstances. Okay, let me see. I've been babbling. You guys let me talk. Let's see. No, ego's not beneath us. I just need substance as well. Um, yeah, how to get to the substance. Okay, so at this party, same party, and this was, I guess, there's so this young black anthropologist comes out of a PhD program in Notre Dame, and he's there at the party, and we're playing a little music together. It's fun. And then afterwards, he asks the group a question about AI. He says, "I just wrote a book about jazz and New Orleans," and he's clearly enjoying that he wrote this book. And he says, "I want to do an audio book of it. Which would you guys rather, a book read by AI or a book read by a human?" And everybody said, "Oh, well, a human for sure. Don't be." And I said, uh, no, not me. I mean, I just listened to a 600-page book read to me by a computer voice that's not even AI. Um, and we got into an interesting conversation about it. And my words to him at the end were sobering. This is a guy who, you can't make a lot of money coming out with a cultural anthropology PhD these days. And it costs $3,000, $5,000 to get someone to read your book, or it costs hours and hours. My point to him, sorry, this is a long way around. This is a long walk to say, I don't care about the voice that much because I am paying attention to the substance. What moves me in a book is not the carrier wave. It's the substance of what's saying. So yes, you need substance. So figuring out what substance, what signal, what's noise, and sometimes what signal is that the person just wants their noise. They don't want signal. They don't want substance. So you got all that. You got all that in. And then, let's see. Uh, uh, taking notes. You've never considered replacing my interpersonal response as AI. Uh, join the club. That's what most people are doing. I won't end up doing that. I'll be a late adopter if I do it at all. I've spent years cultivating my weird voice. And so I'm trying to figure out how to. No, so I use it for generating titles and things like that. And I'm trying to use it for dialogues. I'm writing more and more of these ideas as dialogues or monologues like Magnificent Mike, but also dialogues. Like I just worked out this dialogue, which is just the cycle we seem to be going through for millennia between saying, yeah, what's different about life? Well, there's something added from another dimension. Uh, what is that substance? Well, it's everywhere, like God's love or spirit or information. Okay. Well, if it's everywhere, then how does it explain the difference between life and non-life? If spirit is everywhere, if God's spirit is everywhere, why do some things get alive and other things not? And the response is, well, no, it's everywhere, but it's specifically in life. So yeah, there's spirit everywhere, or God's spirit everywhere. And then someone says, no, no, no. There is no difference between life and non-life. Everything has spirit in it, or everything has life in it. And then someone else says, no, if it's everywhere, it's nowhere. If information or spirit is everywhere, then there's no difference because there's no life. You watch this thing, it goes around and around for thousands of years. It's why we haven't gotten around to a physical explanation, a strictly physical explanation for why there is for how life emerges and what it actually is within nothing but physical chemistry. You got these some people are saying there's something added from another reality. It explains life. And you got these other people who say, there is no other reality, therefore there's no life. And there's a few variations on that, but I finally worked it into a dialogue of 8 people. I'm going to turn it into an animation. And yeah, I'll use AI for those voices. Why? Because I'm not good at voices. And I'm certainly not good at 8 different ones. So that's where I'll use it. Okay, let's see. Yes, that's an issue. The issue is they are engaging in self-affirming acts, and tamed society has no negative feedbacks, and it allows them to coalesce around dangerous delusions. Yes, taking notes, I am going to mention again. Um, I hope you see yourself in there too. This is a fundamental challenge I have to deal with in this work. I've talked about it a lot. Maybe too much. Goes without saying, but bears repeating. Um, there are 2 kinds of people: the people who recognize that there's only one, we're all the same kind, and those people who recognize it, who don't recognize that. There's 2 kinds of people: those who see that we're all one, and those who don't. I'm both, and that's my bind. I am paying a lot of attention to absolutists, assholes, hero bots, gaslighters, narcissists, but I'm also recognizing those appetites in myself. I don't want my recognition of them to make in myself to make me sympathetic or charitable to these dangerous people who you describe engaging in these self-affirming acts. But I do want to recognize how many self-affirming acts I engage in. And So one way to think about this is real good questions. I lie. You lie. I engage in hypocrisy. I have double standards. You engage in hypocrisy and double standards. Um, when I'm having a conversation with someone and I want them to use my framing instead of their framing, I'm engaging in gaslighting. It's like everyday gaslighting. If I say, no, you're seeing it wrong, this is how to see it, it's not the same as me gaslighting with a total fantasy to fuck with them, but it's still in that realm. I'm trying to say, no, my intuition's better than yours. So my question is this: if I lie, if I engage in hypocrisy, if I gaslight, what distinguishes a liar, a hypocrite, a gaslighter? If you're not paying attention to those questions, you're very likely to simply go around labeling anybody who's gaslighting you don't like as gaslighting, or to label anyone who is not into you a narcissist. So I'm trying to deal with the questions that follow from our answers. Yes, there are assholes in this world. There are absolutists. There are fascists. I'd like some brain aneurysms distributed more effectively for social purposes than they are. There are people I wish didn't exist, but they do. And so I've got to try to understand them, but I don't ever want to take refuge in the satisfaction of feeling like because they do that shit, it proves I don't. They are engaging in self-affirming acts, and the tame society has no negative feedback that it allows them to call it. I agree with your arguments, and I just don't want to. When I see that stuff, I I agree with it. I probably write it more than I admit, that kind of stuff. Um, but uh, I got to recognize, that's the point of this last video, that I am also self-affirming by pointing them out. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. All right, so let's see. And take it or leave it. You don't have to believe me on that. It's just I'm telling you where I go when I see that prose. I have a feeling these days that it it's made us a little gloating, a little complacent, a little too indulgent in what I call scornography, the um, the pornographic satisfactions of scorn. And I don't want to then equalize and say, yeah, well, we do it too. I don't want to then say, I'm not agreeing with the Trumpist who typically starts any response to anything I put out with, you do it too, or the left does it more, or something like that. No, I'm not doing that. Questions of degree matter a lot to me. But ultimately, where I go with that question, the liar, if we all lie, what distinguishes a liar? My answer actually comes from the original quote, which is power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I'm really paying attention to absolutists. I think we all engage in lying. I mean, the evidence is very clearly there. Um, uh, and anybody who says they don't, or egotism, like it's beneath them, or lying, they would never lie, that's actually a form of lying. It's a self-delusion to say you never lie. The difference is that with an absolutist, it becomes a solution to all your problems. So the way I think about this mostly is in terms of the confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a problem all humans would have to deal with. I think of it as very much a direct analog to us eating food, not poison. We have to be selectively interactive with our environment. And since I'm a feeling, thinking being, that would mean I would want to take in ideas that would nurture or feed my confidence, not the ones that don't. We all have that problem. Decent folks recognize it's a problem they have to manage. Assholes or absolutists treat it as a solution to all their problems. That's the difference. It's not that they engage in self-affirming acts. I do. You do. I don't know anybody who doesn't. It's that they do it absolutely. That's where it's locked down. And absolute is the right word for it. I don't like the word asshole. Absolutist is not bad, but absolutist is nothing can influence it. That's what absolute originally means. It means dissolved away from all influences. So it's absolutely sure. Okay, so there we go. Let's see. But it's easy to do in business. Okay, the distinction I make is given a society cooperative enough, we have needs. I don't engage in ego play to justify even further consolidation and harm to others. At least I try not to follow these lines. Good. Okay. I don't engage in ego play to justify even further consolidation and harm to others. At least I try not to follow these lines. You're onto something that's very important and a fundamental conundrum for me. I have major red flags when someone engages in positive self-reporting. They think that they're giving me greater confidence. I think they are making me worried or wary anyway. And there's a kind of doubling down on it that I've been dealing with lately. So, for example, I paraphrase this from some recent interactions. Okay, you caught me singing my own praises, but let me assure me, my intentions are pure and my aim is true. I'm humble and open-minded. I don't believe in bragging, so you probably misunderstood me, perhaps on purpose, just to put me down and make me feel bad. I mean, I hear you and thanks for sharing. You know, I'm always open to feedback. Okay. So do you see what I'm doing there? That's a kind of a doubling down. It's a reassurance in response to me saying, look, I hear you say that you're honest and humble and all this stuff, but it gives me the creeps. And they say, no, 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 no. Yeah, you caught me doing that, but that's not me. I don't do that. And it's a kind of a doubling down. Okay. In the meantime, I'm stuck with the same problem you're dealing with right here. So what is my alternative to self-reporting? If I want to say, um, I don't talk down to people. I don't get on my high horse would be an example of something. It shows up in one of my videos. Okay, well, that creeps me out because I don't get to speak like I'm the objective authority on what I do and what I feel because I know that people all around the world are perfectly capable of misinterpreting their own behavior in flattering ways. So I don't want to do that. So what can I say in response? Exactly what you said. At least I try not to. Have I escaped the self-reporting problem? No. In fact, no matter how many steps I say, I could say, I like to say that I try not to engage in ego play. I'm 3 steps out and I still haven't escaped my self-reporting. So I think this is a fundamental conundrum. Yeah, okay, no, I do it. It's unavoidable. Good. All right. So what I'm saying is that's you recognizing it. That's you. If you recognize it, you can manage it. But for me, managing it is increasingly a case of me having to show that I do it too. It's this universal me too movement thing that I'm trying to do, which is this is human stuff. Because the grandstanding is getting us into so much trouble, and we've about used up the Earth's carrying capacity for our self-flattering stories. That's what I'm struggling with. I need these self-flattering stories about how I don't engage in ego play. I need my self-flattering stories, and I need my self-flattering denial that I am engaged in the self-flattering stories. Um, and at the same time, I recognize that, as you were saying, to justify further consolation and harm to others, these self-flattering stories that I need are costly. So I'm trying to figure out how to deal with that. Um, it's why I'm so into off jerking, why I'm so into exercise, strategic gullibility, safe escapism, optimal illusion. Let me just explain what I'm talking about there. It's come up before, plenty. It's one of the main things I talk about. I need to exercise my appetite for delusions of grandeur. Um, Yes, so Sir Grumbly, so those are the things we're talking about. We're talking about the self-reflection and how funny it gets. You know, the first book I wrote was called Negotiate with Yourself and Win. Those things are fun, but I'm also asking myself, okay, well, how do I exercise this appetite? Because I don't see condemning and transcending my egotism or my vanity or anything like that. Well, first of all, I don't want to do it uh, as a circle jerk vanity project in the public square about public infrastructure. That would really be consolidating my own self affirmation and harming others. I don't want to do it there. That's the main message I pass to Trumpists if they ever give me an ear, which is look, we all need to jerk off. Just don't do it about government. There's so many better ways to jerk off these days. So off jerking is venting your need to feel superior, that ego appetite, venting my need to feel superior. So yeah, do it safely. Say, self-love is important, but get a room and don't let it go to your head. Zip up after, get back to reality, all of that stuff. So that's why I am arguing that when you jerk off or read or watch a romantic comedy and feel like you are the heroine of it, or um, or dress yourself up, doll yourself up, male or female, metrosexual, whatever, um, or play video games in which you are the superhero, or watch movies in which you're the badass gangster. You are doing a public service as long as you manage it sanely, where you recognize that you're engaged in an activity. This is back to the point that was made by um, uh, let's see. It's a guy who noticed himself. I'm trying to find this one. It's liminal, I think. Uh, uh, I see. I get a dopamine hit when Chat GPT. This is one place I said where it comes in. So you notice that you're doing it, and the question is, can you still get your buzz off of recognizing that you're doing something fictional? I think we're actually great at it. I don't think it's a problem at all. I think people indulge in a sense that they have to treat their fictions as real in order to get the full buzz off of it. And yeah, I can see why they might feel that way. It was way too costly for a very marginal difference. I can get totally off on watching a movie and pretending I would make the obvious choices that the hero makes, even though, no, I wouldn't, not in reality. I can get off in masturbation, and then I can zip up after and get back to reality. I can get my mojo boost. I can get my confidence boost. I could listen to, I mean, it takes a little work to get here, and I'm not claiming it about me. I'm saying a human could do this. It's not that hard. There's plenty of evidence we do this safely and sanely. We just need to do it more, and we need to stop doing it in a way where we get the extra buzz by pretending that our fiction is more real than reality. That's all I'm really talking about here. But you look around at folks, no, they're perfectly good at turning off the TV, zipping up afterwards, and getting back to reality. You've probably heard me say it. I've been to death metal concerts. I've been to a Trump rally. The only difference is what happens in the parking lot afterwards. It's all this bravado and glee about being the smart, wise, strong, righteous ones, whatever. And the church services too. They're all the same. It's this kind of off jerking that humans do. But after the death metal concert, people zip up, get back to their car, take off their spiked jackets, and get back to reality. After a Trump rally, less so. They pretend that they've seen something more real than reality and that they're going to live by it from now on. I think that is all. It's not only what we have to overcome, it's not even that hard, especially because the production values these days are insane. Have you seen 3D or AI porn? It is shocking. Have you seen the quality of movies and video games and VR in general? I mean, boy, have we found some good, safe, healthy ways for people to off jerk, for them to exercise, for them to engage in what I call egotainment, the ego boosting entertainment joy. We've gotten really good at making that stuff. Raises another question that we don't have time for here, but I do have a feeling that we watch it the reverse of how it's healthy. Um, we pretend that the heroism that we are identifying with in a movie substitutes. We don't have to be a hero in real life because we were heroes in the movie that we just watched. And we tend to treat the villainy, the Tony Soprano behavior as encouragement to do it in reality. That's a separate question, but at least I want people to recognize, man, you don't condemn and try to transcend your ego and vanity. Exercise it wisely, which means that you have to recognize it and manage it. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's what I meant. Oh my God, there's a bunch of things. Let me see. Let's see. Third adult content is a 3D a lot. Yeah, intro. People are now competing with outlandishing around it. Okay, there's another factor in here, Liminal, that's interesting to me, which is, and I would know about it because I'm kind of liminal. I'm between two worlds. The world where media technology was just coming online. And I could go to a movie, a matinee every week in the 1960s. Um, for a cheap price, I would get to see a movie with dazzling production values by that time era. In the meantime, a kid born today can watch any movie anytime, all too cheap to meter, the music, all of that. So I'm very interested in what's going to happen and whether the jading, what happens when we get jaded on this stuff. I'm already getting jaded on it. I'm getting more selective in what I watch. Lord knows I'm jaded on sexuality. It's you could say a broken part of me is that I'm just no longer interested. Uh, I will engage in what I call pornostalgia, which is nostalgia for when I cared. It's as bad as that. But then it's well timed because I'm 69 and enough already. But that jadedness is a really interesting challenge that could play well for us or it could play poorly. You could say that one of the things that's happening is that people are so revved out on action films, blockbusters, and all of that that they are the next step is to play it out in reality. That could be one way it goes, and another is that if you get over the dazzle, you can kind of relax out of thinking it's a big deal. I'll have to think about that one more. I have that's a new thought to me, so I'll think about it. Okay, so we got a few minutes left, and I'm going to answer all of your comments. I'm going to address everyone. I have some research to do on behalf of humanity. Uh, that's right. On behalf of humanity and as a member of it. I mean, men and women have to measure up. Well, okay. So moralizing is what I'm talking about here. Here's a connection I hadn't made before. So in my couples counseling work or my work with clients, I will point out the problems with moralizing. Um, uh, and I will encourage what I call demoralizing. You strip the moralizing off of your claims to each other, let's say in a couple, and you talk preferences. I have this preference, you have that preference. I think moralizing is a real problem, but it's really satisfying. So, what is moralizing? It's pretending the universe is on your side. That's what moralizing is. So if I moralize at you, shame on you for doing this. I'm talking like I like the universe or God or something is my name droppable ally, and I don't think it's good for us. So yes, Sir Crumbly, I've got a few recommendations. If I would definitely recommend seeing The Boys, which is a TV series on Prime, I think, or something like that. South Park, Family Guy. Um, uh, uh, so there's there's more serious works as well. I'll try to come up with one. Feel free to email me if you've got anything that you're interested in. Good. If you love The Boys, also watch Peacemaker. It's similar. It's the DC equivalent, sort of. No, it's not. It's a little bit more like Guardians of the Galaxy, but what you're watching is a kind of it's farce. It's people with their own characteristics. The Boys is heavier. It's got a deeper, more useful message, I think, or a more pointed message anyway. Um, so this is one of the issues. The Boys is one of the only things that are doing this. In general, if you're selling a movie or making a movie, you've got to make the heroes generic enough that anybody can identify with them. That's kind of the problem we're up against. So, and it was beautifully played out in people's reaction to The Boys. All sorts of right wingers loved it until they realized that it was actually pointing the finger at them. And then they lost interest and the reviews went down and all of that because they were offended because they thought they were the heroes, just like ISIS thinks ISIS members think they are the heroes of Hollywood blockbuster white hat you know, again, black hat kind of cowboy movies or any of those kind of movies. That's a whole other conversation, and we can build on it in the future. Um, okay, so we're closing up shop in any minute now. Enough of me, Jeremy. Uh, uh, I I have to listen to me all day, but you guys, I'm gonna spare you. Okay, no, where I started was that I actually love these conversations in my head, and am delighted to have you part of them. And do email me if you want to. If they got any questions or comments or anything I didn't follow up on here. Um, Email me. You have my email. It's all over. For example, the description part of my videos. Email me if you've got something that's on your mind. I'm really just having these conversations in my head and with anybody who will have them. That's what I love about you guys. That you keep on showing up and wanting to have this conversation, but you get more. You have way more room to participate than this medium deals with. So once again, if anybody wants to ever do a study group that actually just talks, that people just talking, I'm available for that too. Free. We would just get together in a medium where you get to also talk. By the way, if we did that and there were 8 of us there, then I wouldn't need to use AI voices. We could actually record in real time the dialogue that I need for my animation. So that would be a help too. Anyway, email me if you got anything, and I will be back again next week. And let's see. Uh, Thank you. Good. All right. Uh, Bless you all. Not that I know who God blesses or have any say in who. What I mean to say is I like you guys. Thanks for being here. I will see you next week. All right. Bye bye.